on the backdrop of the podium, the Capitol. On either side, there's two of them flanked. Like there would be pillars of Roman fasciae. They're called fasciae, Facia, I believe. But what that is, when they're creating a law, the debating. Well, they would have this tube of rods. It was like a tube, like a paper towel tube, but it was made out of rods, and it was tied on both ends. Inside there was an axe, and they would carry this around for discipline. Okay, so there's three levels where if somebody was getting out of line, whoever you presented the fascia would walk up to them, wherever they were speaking from, and sort of stand there. It's a first line of, aggression to message, presentation of violence. Okay. Stage two, if they didn't fall in line, they would take one of the rods out of the construction because the whole tube was built from a series of rods, almost like a tube made out of tubes. So they would take out a rod and beat the person with it. The axe is in the center stage. That's what stage three is. Axe. You get the axe. 1776, the War of Independence and all this. So why do we have in Europe, the reason this whole separation of church and state, freedom of religion, came because Europe was ruled by the Vatican, the Holy Roman Empire. And I mean ruled. That's why it was like, let's get out of here, That's why religion is so important to people that come over here. Like, for example, the Amish fled Europe, on certain occasions being burned at the stake. But so they fled out of there, and a lot of people did that were Protestant, There was this campaign, I don't know how representative it is in the media, if it's just something's forgotten. Coke came up with like, oh, we're going to redo Coke, So we're going to redo it. And it was like, oh, there was all this media hype, and then even the news pushed it. Well, everybody's like, it tastes too much like Pepsi. We want the old Coke. So I could be like, okay, Coke Classic. So what did they do? They just doubled their market share. Not their market share, their market presence, So now they have more shelf space, and the word was out. It was all planned. And similarly, America, these people cared so much about future generations. George Washington and the founding fathers, I think it was Washington he owned a distillery, rich man, and they owned slaves. So it's like, how enlightened could you be if you don't see a human as a human? So that's the folklore that they came over here. Well, if you're a farmer and you raise cattle, and you're like, well, Mr. Johnson, he passed away, his farm's up for auction. I know how to raise cattle because I've been doing it since I was a little kid. My dad did that. So we raise cattle, and you're like, you have 120 acres. There's only so many cows you can raise on that piece of land. What happens if you want to double your business? Well, you go and you purchase another pasture, and then you just start breeding more cattle and populate the new pasture, which is what America is. It's just nothing but a pasture for our rulers, the people who founded America. It's the same people who controlled Europe. Why? Okay, so 1776, 100 years later, all these structures in Washington, D.C. were essentially completed. They're what's this term? Okay, it's called neoclassical, which is a mixture of Grecian and Greek-Roman architecture. So essentially, the Roman Empire was oppressing Europe, which is what drove people over here like a fire would drive gazelles. And then they started building roads, for the people. That's for their grid. That they build everything for their grid. They're taxing people. They tax people. They control people. It's just more power, like a sort of a breeding program, if you will, and in mass. Why would the powers that be that broke away, that started this country, emulate the very thing they just escaped in architecture? I mean, in everything else as well. System of government, all their documentation, all that stuff. They just emulated everything. If you think I'm wrong, look how everything's turned out. We've morphed into the very thing that people left Europe for. We're there.